Looks like we're just going live right now. I'm waiting for a few more people to get in, but welcome back to the Big Blue Banter New York Giants football podcast. My voice is limited tonight. I was at the game tonight, Nick. And look, I'm an emotional guy. I think anyone who listens to this podcast is well aware of that. I've been working on it. I think I've slightly gotten better. I know I've slightly gotten better over my life at trying to control my emotions, Nick. But it's not always easy for me, and I have relapses all the time. And I had a few screams tonight at the game. The first Wan'Dale Robinson throw miss, I lost my mind on. The ball that skipped to Slayton on the comeback route from a clean pocket that he hitched into 2 times, I lost my mind on. It's just tough. It's frustrating. And so I lost my voice, but the Giants found a way to ruin a really, really great night tonight from the defense. I personally believe this was the best I've seen the Giants defense look since Russell Wilson, Seattle, when you adjust to the opponent. The Bengals entered this game first in offensive EPA. The Giants gave up one long touchdown run to Burrow where they screwed up on, and then some plays at the end of the game. We're on the field 70,000 times, it felt like, and stop after stop, fumble in key spot, sack in key spot, pressure in key spot, had Burrow looking a little bit rattled. And to have that kind of defensive performance and not win a football game, it's just unbelievable at this point. It's gut-wrenching. I can't stand it, Nick. The Giants have scored one offensive touchdown at home in 3 games. They've led one offense. The fans have been subjected to one offensive game. They didn't have a play above 15 yards in this game, dude. And guess what? The Bengals dared them to. And that's what really has me the most frustrated. When you see the game, Nick, from our view, and I know you had a similar view in the box, but it's a little different because I've been up there. It's kind of like a different angle a little bit in that section. But I had 300s level 50-yard line tonight, Nick. Bottom of 300 level, what I consider to be the best seat in the entire house. And the way that the Bengals played the Giants, particularly in the second half, after Jones missed all those throws in the first half, those safeties were so close up to the line of scrimmage. Those DBs were so close up. They rallied on everything quick game. They did everything. They shot every gap to stop the run. And Tracy still found runs because he's a beast. And they played their safeties 10 to 12 yards off the line of scrimmage every snap, sometimes with just one high safety. And they couldn't throw any deep passes despite that. That's the frustration for me. That's where it starts. That's where it ends. I'm not blaming it on one guy, but goddamn, if you can't watch that thing and realize that when a defense plays you 10 to 12 yards off the ball with all 11 defenders and you still can't make one pass get even remotely on target, remotely, Nick, beyond 15 yards. The closest thing was what? The Slayton ball, the Hyatt ball, those 2 that landed just a little past them. God damn, dude. Live, that throw to Slayton that drew the DPI live, that was unreal. I don't know what happened. It was like a yips moment. It was like in golf when you're too close to the hole and you blast it over the green. That ball was horrible. Thank God we got a DPI that just saved the game. But that's the only touchdown the Giants have had, Nick, in 3 games at home. A DPI that leads to a 1-yard rush. How much longer can the fans take this? How much more do we have to be subjected to as fans? I don't know, man. But I just sucks.
Yeah, it absolutely sucks. The Giants did not execute at all on offense. They hardly tried to run the football. It seemed like they went with an RPO heavy approach, put it in Jones' court. Jones has done a solid job in the past discerning when to give the football to the running back or when to throw it. And it just seemed like every time he was like, all right, I'm throwing it. The Bengals were right on top of Wan'Dale Robinson. They were right on top of Darius Slayton. And we did not see a lot of Tyrone Tracy Jr. runs in the first half. We did not see a lot of Eric Ray runs. And it was Daniel Jones holding on to the football, the Bengals removing those RPO options, and then Daniel Jones going, oh shit, I don't know what to do with the damn football. And then he's taking a hit. And then he's running the football and he's taking more hits. And he's getting off of his game. And the Bengals defense is just kind of all over him. As not quite to the level that the Giants defense was all over Joe Burrow, which we'll talk about. That's the one positive sign. But Jones is a quarterback who can get rattled. And without a rushing attack, you're not going to work the play action passing attack. And he tried to take some shots here and they weren't there. And the Bengals had tight coverage. Next thing you know, the Giants are sitting here with 41 pass attempts, 205 total yards with a brutal interception. What did we say, Dan? We said, yeah, they ran that throwback play against Seattle, and it was cool because it led to that Darius Slayton touchdown. But the 3 times they tried it before, it was almost a disaster or it was a disaster. Well, now here, prime time, it was a disaster. And of course, Daniel Jones, man, like you're year 6 in, you can't do that. You don't throw it out of the back of the end zone in that with a defensive lineman with BJ Hill bearing down on you, man. Just eat the sack or just clock it into the dirt. It's a 1st and 10.
Take a grounding if you have to. Take a grounding.
Take a grounding. You just can't. You can't do what you did there. And I'm glad after the game, Brian Dable acknowledged, like, I wish I could have that play call back.
Okay.
I'm so glad that he said that, because that is you've tried this so much and you're getting creative and you're getting cute. I wish Jones just threw it to Tyrone Tracy Jr., who was wide open right after it, but he wanted to see if Theo Johnson, he did not have the time to do that. And that was, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why the New York Giants didn't win this football game, but the Giants weren't doing anything offensively. That was one drive where they actually were. That and the drive they scored on the Tyrone Tracy run. And that one was facilitated by a DPI, as you mentioned.
And all Tracy before that. Literally all Tracy before that. And one bubble to Wandale. God's little shit bubble. Like,
that was an RPO too. Yeah. And then the Giants, when you run that much RPO, the offensive line, it's tough for them. Are they running or are they passing the football? And then you get called with an ineligible man downfield.
I think your only explosive play of the whole game.
I know. Exactly. Which the Giants, again, no explosive plays. It's 2022 all over again. Only they're freaking losing.
I was really happy on the drive home, actually, to listen to Bob Papa and Carl Banks and John Schmelk, and they really held them accountable in this game for what they said. And one line that Bob Papa made was like, if you don't have a play longer than 15 yards in a game, you're not going to win a football game. And that's the truth. If your offense can't generate anything longer than 15 yards. And to be quite frank, I don't buy into, the why, because the why to me is just one why at this point, because yes, I know Hyatt didn't look great on his targets, but the ball didn't look great either. And what happened to me, what really defines this game, is that Lou Anarumo, who came in with no recipe to stop anyone. The Bengals were the worst defense in the NFL. Yeah, they got back BJ Hill and somebody else, Shannon Rankins. That's not going to make a defense go from dead last to the best, looking like the best in the NFL. There's something wrong in between that could allow for something like that to happen. But to me, the difference was that Anarumo was able to play basically like 11-on-9 football, because he didn't have to use his safeties to defend the deep half. And when you don't have to use your safeties to defend the deep half, you can basically make it the easiest game plan of your life as a defensive coordinator. You can rally to all your quick game that the other team wants to run. You can stop all the RPOs. You can stop the run game. You can make it look like, and people are like, oh, Brian Dable, how does he not run the ball in the first half? Would you want to run into those looks, Nick? I don't think so. Like you're supposed, the whole point of football is that it's a chess match. If the defense is showing that they're trying to stop the run and they're putting their person in there and they're setting up the defense for that way, then you pass the ball. You take your deep shots. Wan'Dale Robinson, hit that play on third down, right? Have the Slayton ball, go hit him in stride, or at least put the ball somewhere where they could get called for DPI, right? Like the one in the end zone. But when the ball's that far off target, it's just impossible to run an offense.
Yeah, it's very tough to run an offense, and it's frustrating. I'm excited to get to the tape to see exactly what Lou Anarumo and the Bengals were doing, even though we had the bird's eye view. I still think you could have ran the football a little bit more.
Against those looks? Okay.
Yeah. Well, again, I don't know what looks you're talking about, because I don't have it right in front of me right now.
No, I'm not talking about looks. I'm talking about one simple thing: having 11 guys within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage and no safeties off the ball.
Yeah. They didn't see as much too high as we saw with Mike McDonald. I get that, but putting Daniel Jones, like you put a lot on Daniel Jones's plate, and Giant fans, we know this at this point. We're 6 years in. When has Daniel Jones ever risen to the occasion, especially in primetime? He has one primetime win. He's what, 1-14 or something?
1-14. I think it's 1-14, 0 wins at home in primetime, and 12 to 20 touchdown to interception ratio in primetime games. That's the narrative, Nick, and I respect it. But to me, what I'm more worried about narrative streetwise is why does this quarterback, like, because the primetime games is one thing, but what about why does this quarterback allow himself to, like, when he's rattled, why is, like, the game's over? Like, if he has an early rattle, he just can't throw a football, because Minnesota wasn't a primetime game, but he got rattled early and he just couldn't throw the football. And it's the same thing in this game.
Yeah, I also think the Bengals, the Giants offensive line probably had the worst game.
Definitely worst game of the year for the O-line.
So I don't think they did Daniel Jones any favors, and it didn't seem like they were opening many holes for Tyrone Tracy Jr., but I also didn't see a lot of creative rushing from Tyrone Tracy Jr. in the offense, right? It was a lot of zone read, and I like the option on fourth down. Like, that was cool, but I didn't see a lot of power. I didn't see any counter, and we'll go to the tape to substantiate that, but it didn't seem like the Giants were trying to, own the line of scrimmage like we expected them to, because the Bengals defense is second to last in rushing EPA entering this week.
I'll be excited to see when you get to the tape what your thoughts are on that, because I remember with Dallas, we thought they'd run on them because of where their run defense was coming in.
That's another whole primetime game where they just couldn't,
because Dallas didn't allow for it. Mike Zimmer made it clear you're not going to run the ball. And I kind of feel like when there's 11 defenders all around the line of scrimmage, driving down on the line of scrimmage every play because they know they don't have to respect the deep half, it's pretty easy to stop the run. That's my take on football, and I'll stand by that forever, basically. And I think, look, you're right. It's definitely like there's a difference between like the thought like, oh, this is all Jones' fault. It's not about being Jones's fault or not. It's about can he rise to the occasion and help you win a football game? That
Yeah,
is not even worth arguing tonight. He obviously didn't do that. But I think like while there weren't that many opportunities, it's about hitting one or two of them, right? Like the Wandale Robinson third down,
that's a
the
huge one.
Darius Slayton comeback that skipped into the ground, the
Ugh.
Darius Slayton first down deep throw that he just missed. And that one was one of his better ones. Even the Hyatt one, when they were backed up in their end zone after a turnover on 1st and 10, like Hyatt didn't run the greatest route. I admit that. And he actually should have been called for an OPI. But my concern is not that. My concern is why is the ball landing 8 yards ahead of a wide receiver? Like,
Yeah,
why is it not in the vicinity at the very least? Is it an arm talent thing? And that's the thing that weirds me out about Jones, dude, because like we go week to week and his arm looks different. I've never seen a quarterback like this in my entire life watching football that from a pure arm talent standpoint can look so different week to week. We'll see it on the tape soon, Nick, but it's one week to the next. I get it. Seattle, maybe the weather was different. It was a little bit windy tonight. There were definitely some gusts. We saw it on the Greg Joseph kick. But I mean, Joe Burrow didn't really have this issue with ball placement, to be completely honest. He was rattled from pressure, but not ball placement. So it's just weird for me to see Jones go week to week and just be a completely different thrower of the football.
100%, man. And this is the Daniel Jones experience. We've talked about this ad nauseum. It just sucks so bad for the defense because the defense did everything in their power to win this football game. Brian Burns is
the field goal game.
Brian Burns, Azeez Ojulari, Dexter Lawrence. Other than the 47-yard Vanilla Vic scamper and then those plays at the end, like you said, the defense was locked down. They even look, dude. Brian Dable decided to go for it on 4th down at like his own 38-yard line, and I was like, "Yo, okay." And I'm wondering, I'm like, why exactly is he doing this? This is a very defensive game. Your defense has been playing well.
I didn't like that call either.
Punt? It's very aggressive. And I even thought, like, is this like an emotional decision by him because he's so frustrated with his offense? And then they don't get it. And you're like, oh, well, that sucks. Guess what happens? Azeez Ojulari, Bobby Okereke punch the football out. Micah McFadden falls on it. And the Giants get the freaking ball back. And then Dable goes into a mode where it's like, I don't really care. We're just going to bleed this clock out, score a touchdown, and try to win this football game in the most nasty, disgusting style. And that's like how the Giants are. That's like how they're relegated right now. That's depressing. That shouldn't be. That's what you do when you have a backup quarterback that you don't trust at all. Not when you have a $40 million quarterback at the helm. That's how depressing it is.
I agree with you on that, Nick, and I agree it's depressing. But from my vantage point, I think when you're a coach and you see your quarterback that off target on his passes of 10 plus yards.
Yeah, I'm not chastising Dable.
I know you're not. I want to make sure that listeners hear it because I know how people will interpret that as a shot at the coaching and the play calling from that standpoint. And I'm not saying
if they didn't watch the game, maybe.
No, I think that's a thing. I think a lot of people will say, look, the Giants didn't run the ball enough in the first half, which I can agree with to some extent.
I agree with that.
And I want to watch the tape. And if there's 11 guys flying down, I just don't know what a run's going to do that many times. But like Tracy did manage to like overcome a lot of these shit boxes. I know people are mad that he slipped on the third one on down run, which was the most obvious play call I've ever freaking seen. And I could see it from the stands. But like outside of that, he basically did everything he could to maximize yards in this game. But I kind of feel like Dable adjusted to what he saw, and he saw a quarterback who was yipped out and totally rattled, and ball placement was unbelievably bad, just unbelievably bad this game, and anything that was 10 plus yards. So what can he do?
Yeah, of course. My point is more that the Giants are in a position right now where it's like we're just going to possess the ball, keep Joe Burrow off the field. It's 2nd and 1. We're not taking shot plays. Like, we can't take shot plays. We're going to quarterback sneak and then run another 40 seconds off.
You're right about that, by the way. They never take a shot.
This isn't a shot at Dable. Like, this is just
I'm not
how
saying
they have to play football at the moment, which is very frustrating. But he got bailed out for going for it on 4th down. And I'm also wondering, was he going for it on 4th down because that punter that they were trotting out there was just like so horrendous that they're like, dude, it's okay.
Dude, the first punt of the game, my brother and I were like, when they had that first like 4th and 4 at the 47, and he like line drive that ball, my brother and I were like, oh my God, we're gonna lose another game because of a special teams player. Like, because that's what our thought that went through our heads at that moment. Obviously, it ended up not being the case.
And then you have another holder for the kicker. I don't know if that threw off Greg Joseph or if it was the wind or Greg Joseph just sucks. Either way, this is another loss. And I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, we should have won this game. This game was within reach. Your offense didn't do anything. And at some point,
No, I take that. I think that Nick, I disagree with you on that strongly. I think the Giants should have won this game 100%.
okay, well, let me finish first.
Sorry.
And what I'm saying is the New York Giants, like, look, at some point you got to look and say, if your quarterback is this bad and your offense is not doing anything, and they're not moving the football, we should probably stop saying, oh, we should have won that game. Because then this is just your roster. This is just the facts this is the reality of the situation. Your offense is not good. You're going to lose these football games. So maybe I understand, like, yeah, if we had a competent quarterback, maybe, yes, we would win. But they're not getting the job done. They're not doing what is tasked for them to do. They're not executing. And that is like the basis. Number one thing you're supposed to do in football is execute. And the offense is not doing that right now.
Right.
So, yes, the Giants should have won because the defense put them in position. But when the offense is not creating any explosive plays, when you're missing field goals, when you're not executing on special teams, you're not executing on offense, then I just don't know if we should be sitting and be like, oh, we should have won that game. Like, I get what you're saying, but, the Giants aren't executing right now. And just how many of these games that are close are we going to lose because of special teams here or the quarterback not doing it? Like there's a lot of that this season because we could look at the schedule and be like, oh, we should have won that game, that game, that game. But at some point we got to be like, we just suck. We're just not a good football team.
I think that's an excellent point. I should have let you finish your point because I see what you're saying now. And I'm happy you did get to there because I know what you're saying. I've said it a lot. They should have won this game. They should have won Washington. You've said it. We've both said it. But you're right. At some point, it's not a should have anymore because this is, we could say we should have from the standpoint that you just said, with the quarterback should have played better and the offense should execute. I'm not blaming it all on Jones. It's not about blame. It's about, can he rise above blame and be the guy that makes the difference, make a few plays. And guess what? More so than any time, tonight was a decent day. Like, I'm not even going to get into it, but yes, I will. You can blame him tonight. He played horrible football. Yeah, even the 4th and 2 to Slayton, dude. He locked on to Slayton the entire time and threw that shit late. That ball could have been, and there was a defender in the throwing passing lane. Fine, come off that read, then go to Wandell, who's won his route, okay? Don't use that as an excuse, like, I can't throw the ball to the defenders there. That's why I had to throw it late. I watched the DB from the 300 level drive on that Slayton underneath, did not play him over the top at all, and knew that ball was going to go to him underneath. That's quarterback locking on. And basically all he's done this year is first read shit, dude, from 5 yards. Like, we're praising all these games of efficiency, but like, God damn it, man. Like, we need something more out of this guy. We need big plays to change games. All he needed against Dallas was one big play. All he needed against Cincinnati was one big play, and the Giants will be 4-2 now and not 2-4. So if you can't, as a fan, process why that's partially, at least, on the quarterback, the guy who decides games, then you're not really, in my opinion, a Giants fan. You're a fan of the quarterback first, and you're a fan of the Giants second. And I do honestly believe that, and I'm sorry to say it. I hope it doesn't hurt feelings. It is what it is.
I think a lot of people understand the limitations of
most do
now. It's rough, man. It's not good, man. And some of those misses too, like the Wandale one we brought up. I think that was after the Giants took like a big sack too when they attempted to pass on 2nd down, and then they came back and they had that play dialed up. That was a nice shot play. Wandale Robinson created, and this is like an issue with Wandale when, look, I love Wandale Robinson, huge Wandale Robinson fan, but his catch radius is so limited that it puts such a burden on the quarterback to be precise with his ball placement. And that's not something that like Daniel Jones really does. Like, you have to put it within like a very like narrow and a very small frame for Wandale to come down with it.
Good point.
You have to be very accurate with his throws. It's not like Slayton or Hodgins or some of the other receivers here, because they have long arms. They can go up and they can get it. And Wandale's never going to do that. But
you're not saying, go ahead, finish.
No, but I don't want to like remove deeper shots from Wandale Robinson, because I think he is explosive enough to create separation. But when you have an inconsistent quarterback, though, too, it's just like, oh, we need so many variables that should be expected. Like, this is not complex. Like, most NFL teams expect this, right? But when you need a lot of different things to come together, it's just like, is it actually going to come together? And it just seems like the Giants can't get out of their own way on the offensive side of the football.
But sometimes they do. Like last week, they look great on offense. The weirdest thing, man. It's so inconsistent with Jones. It's like he has these flashes, and that's why he's here in year 6, because he's put together enough flashes of, like last week, dude, he looked like a very good quarterback on tape. Anyone who watched that tape can say that. And then anyone who watches the tape this week can say that he looked like a very bad quarterback this week. Anyone who's objectively looking at either thing can say both of those things. And I know you're not saying this to excuse Jones at all with that Wandale thing. And it's a great point you made about the catch radius, because it is limited, but that ball was yards off target, right? And he had the purely clean pocket. And that's when you start to worry. Like, to me, it's just the arm talent thing. It remains very odd to me because that throw against Seattle to Slayton was a really good throw, man.
He
And
was
that throw,
he was in command against
I
Seattle. He
just
was
think it's like a
ready.
confidence thing for him.
He
I
was
think when he gets
cooked.
rattled early, he's mentally not able to get back in a game. And when he's on and locked in like he was in Seattle, he carries over that momentum and can play his best football. I also think part of the time the issue is just aiming versus letting it rip, because that Slayton throw that drew a DPI was a purely aimed throw. And that's why it was such a bad throw. When he just lets it rip like he did the 40-yarder to Slayton against Seattle, where I just watched how he threw that, he kind of just like loaded and ripped it. It was on target. And I've heard quarterbacks talk about like that, the problems with aiming versus just throwing the football. But we can go back and forth on this all day, Nick, like what's going on with him? Why are some of the throws look good?
Yeah.
But like the reality of the situation is this is what he is. He's good one week, he's bad another week. And that's the reality of where we're at.
You should expect more from your quarterback and from your offense in general. I mean, dude, we have one touchdown in 3 freaking games. 2 of them were prime time. 1 touchdown in 3 games. It's just that's inexcusable. And again, man, like I'm not sitting here blaming Dable for that, but he has to take so much of the blame because you are the play caller now. And I know there are variables like we've discussed all throughout this podcast that led to this inept offense, and he does take the blame. But if you're not scoring points, then like, what are we doing here at this point? And
I agree with you, Nick, but I also do feel, and I'll have to see it on the tape, but I feel like as a play caller, you're insanely limited if a defense is going to play 11 guys on a line of scrimmage driving downhill on every snap, and your quarterback can't throw over the top. I just don't know what else is expected from him as a play caller. Yeah. But the weird thing is, like, he knows that, right? He sees that. He stopped calling deep passes in the second half, basically. They stopped trying to pass the ball down the field in the second half. If you're at that point, though, Nick, it's like, that's when it gets weird to me. If you're a play caller and you could see what's happening, why is that quarterback still in the game for that game? Because I know Jones is the best option for the Giants. I agree with that. Long over the course of the season, what they got, Jones, Locke, DeVito, Jones is by far their best option to win football games, Nick. But that doesn't mean he's their best option every single week. I think that's a really important distinction to make, because against Minnesota, he was not their best option. Against tonight, against the Bengals, he was not their best option because he was a rattled version of himself. And when he's playing his rattled style and he can't throw the ball accurately more than 5 yards down the field, I know he'll give you some runs. He'll hit a couple passes here and there. That's not their best option. I got to be honest. I don't think Drew Lock or anyone could possibly be worse. Like a quarterback should be able to throw the ball 10 yards down the field.
Yes. Back to the point from like 10 minutes ago. And I really want to like drive this home. It's the offense that's being run right now is an offense that you run for a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
That's like what the offense
game. Right.
Yeah. Like especially in the second half, like we're not going to try anything deep. We just want to hold on to the football. We want 16 play drives. We're going to bleed it out. And hopefully we can execute in the red zone. The Giants got bailed out by a penalty, which was a penalty in the red zone that allowed Tyrone Tracy to score. A lot of it was RPO in the first half. And like, dude, we like the RPO. And I don't think Jones bad with the RPO. It wasn't working though in this game. And I think you did need to kind of like, run the football a little bit and try to establish it. But it didn't seem like the Giants were really opening much holes when they went into like the zone read game off of some of the RPO stuff. So again, we'll have to like really look at it on tape. And then I think it was 2 of those 4th down conversion attempts that both went incomplete. They were like 2-man route concepts. The other man was open on both of them.
Yeah.
The Wan'Dale was open on the Slayton one, and then Slayton was open on the Wan'Dale one.
Yep.
And the Slayton Wan'Dale one, the defender's ass was to Slayton, and Slayton ran a flat route and was outside the numbers. And all you got to do is put him right on the sideline. It's easy, simple throw. There was plenty of space, and he went to Wan'Dale, and the guy was driving down on it already. All those quick little button hooks, like, again, we'll substantiate it through the all-22. All those quick little button hooks and hitches that the Giants love to run, and they've been running them all season. Cincinnati was on him like that, bro. Yep. Cincinnati was glued to him. Lou Anarumo just removed that as a weapon for the Giants offense.
I don't know why any coordinator would allow that at this point. I really don't. If I'm a defensive coordinator, I know how I'm calling a game against the Giants. I'm putting 11 guys 10 yards off the ball, and I'm saying I'll put a safety back once you beat me. And then that's it. And that's simply it. And I'll say this about what you said just now, your point about Wan'Dale being open on the Slayton miss and Slayton on the Wan'Dale miss. The reality of the situation is it's a quarterback who's making his determination before the snap and throwing to his first read. He has one of the highest first read target throw percentages in the entire NFL. So despite him playing better this year, we're still a one-read offense for the most part. Now, we've gotten to better solutions, and there's been a few times I've watched him work through his progressions, but most of this Giants offense, Nick, is determine what you find pre-snap, short game, and throw the ball. And that's what we saw on those fourth downs, and they were both missed this time. And it's just a sad reality of our situation right now, unfortunately.
Yeah. Let's
Now,
talk
how about
about
the good
something that
thing?
was exciting, though.
Yeah.
I love how we were both right on cue there, dude.
We had to do something. It's
No.
25 minutes in of pain.
25 minutes of depression.
But
No,
what are we supposed to do?
bro,
It was so
Brian
depressing.
Burns and Azeez Ojulari. Whoo,
Z's,
buddy.
baby. Z's.
Dude, Azeez Ojulari, and again, this I don't know even if this is a hot take. I don't think it is. He's a better pass rusher than Kayvon Thibodeau.
Better pure
Now,
pass rusher for sure.
yeah, and I think he offers more, and he's a better athlete. Dare I say? Like, is that like crazy to say?
No,
You know what I mean? Like,
I know exactly what you mean.
yeah, especially when it comes to rushing the passer and getting bendy and bending around punches and underneath punches. So, like, I loved seeing him in that expanded role. What did he finish with? 2 sacks in this game?
2 sacks.
I think the Giants had 4, right?
And 2 sacks and a few more pressures that were really close.
Yes, and then Burns was everywhere against the run. He was harassing Joe Burrow. So, it was his breakout game. The
Burns had a
defense
sack as well.
Yeah.
Dexter came up with a huge sack in a huge spot. Defense had big stops and key times. I know Burrow got one off at the end. What do you expect on the field all game for 70,000 possessions? Jesus Christ. And that's my anger toward anyone. And I've had people blame the defense. Oh, at the end, they gave up the Burrow throw. Jesus Christ. Take a step back. Take a deep breath. That's me. I'm telling myself I need to take the deep breath. Relax a little bit.
With the Burrow ones too. I was like, that Burrow's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He was getting rushed off of his spot a bunch. The Giants, we should come away from this game being like, damn, the defense, even the secondary. Cordell Flott surrendered the 33-yard catch. Cordell Flott was in pretty good position there. That's just Jamar Chase being Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow being Joe Burrow. Deontay Banks lost a couple reps to T. Higgins. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Some of those were crazy catches, like
and T. Higgins
7 for 77. He ended up with not even like a huge average.
Exactly, man. And the Giants overall, man, they were freaking phenomenal on defense. Dude,
phenomenal.
The Ravens defense, a lot of people think is like one of the best defenses in the league. Would they give up like 38 points to the Bengals last week?
Yes.
The Giants just held them to 17.
And that was 17 despite the offense doing nothing. The Ravens offense moved the ball and kept their defense off the field. Giants defense was forced to be on the field the whole game. Like, the Giants defense is real, right? They led the NFL in sacks. A lot of people are like, I don't buy it. They just beat up on the Browns and on the Seahawks. No. They just stopped the number 1 offensive EPA team. I swear, adjusted to opponent, I personally believe this is the best this defense has looked in a single game since that Seattle game. And to me, this is more impressive than shutting down a late career Russell Wilson. Shutting down a Burrow like this, and I know he had a couple big plays at the end. God, who cares? Was unbelievable. And look, Nick, I'll say this about the defense. I feel like they're playing really well together right now. Mostly, though, I feel like the defensive line is just dominating up front. You know what I mean? Like, these guys are playing great ball. Lawrence, Burns, and Azeez, and Kayvon until his injury.
100%, man. 100%. I'll say this, though. In the second half, the Giants defense did have a bit of a break because the Giants offense, they were doing that ugly grinded out, the 16 play, 79-yard drive that ended in a touchdown, 6:45 off the clock, and then 11 plays for 42 yards.
True. They had a break in the second half.
11 plays the Giants went on for 42 yards, which is disgusting. 5:14 off the clock, missed field goal, and then 10 plays, 53 yards, 5:05 off the clock, turnover on down. 8 plays, 43 yards. Now, this was an up-tempo offense, but the Giants looked better when they were running up-tempo offense all throughout the second half. Then the missed field goal, that 45-yard. Missed a 47, missed a 45, just like
use a lot of tempo. It's interesting. I don't see a lot of those drives, just kind of find interesting. I feel like that's
second half.
Jones.
Sprint that in.
Just, I mean, like, generally speaking, though, like, as a team, I feel like that might be a good way for Jones to get going in games like this, where he's just like so off when he's running normal offense. I don't know. They need to think of something. If they're going to leave him in at quarterback when he's having these rattled games, then they need to figure out some way to get him going.
What was the shotgun rate? I feel like the shotgun rate was really
so
high.
Yeah, they were really high, and I wonder what that was.
Yeah, the touchdown one was under center, and that was I think was that 13 personnel or 12? I think Bellinger was the fullback. I think it was Bellinger who was in there, threw a key block, allowed Tyrone Tracy to just scamper in off the back of like 2 tight ends on a double Y set, I think. But no, they didn't do anything on the ground, didn't do anything offensively. Back to the defense, pass rush. Like that's kind of where we're at right now, though. Right? Like, we lost. We scored 7 freaking points. We held the Bengals to 17, and we're just like, that defense, though. And now we got what? The Eagles. And I'm looking at this Eagles game and I'm like,
So
Giants,
winnable.
so winnable. The Eagles barely beat the Browns, who are probably the worst team in the NFL. Their coach is like yelling at his own fans about how he beat the Browns. It's like,
so
yo, you are
weird.
just an absolute embarrassment, bro.
He really
But
is.
oh, he really is, Sirianni. But now, man, I look at this and I'm just like, can I rely on this offense again? Like, that's the one thing. Like, this is what the Giants do sometimes, though. Like, they're going to find like creative and unique ways to lose. And we're all going to be bald because we're going to be ripping our hair out. But then they might like come out and put a solid game plan together and move the football and give you some signs of encouragement and hit like a 60-yard pass from the far hash. And you're like, yo, where'd this come from, man? Like, at least that's what they did against Seattle.
It is. They set themselves up for these like big opportunities. Dallas at home and Cincinnati at home. Big opportunities to save your season. Not only to save it, but just turn the momentum of your season around. And then they fail on these opportunities, especially if they're at home, especially if they're in prime time, because that's when this quarterback's 1-14 in prime time. And I know that's just a narrative, but I don't know. Is it a depth perception thing with the lights, dude? Like, I don't understand why this guy is so bad at night, but he just, this game, the Dallas game from 2 years ago, the Tampa game years ago, like, it's crazy. I mean, Jones is at the point now where he hasn't thrown a passing touchdown at home since 2022. I know he didn't play a lot last season, but he played some games, right? And he played some games already this year. We've had 3 games without a passing touchdown at home. He just, and people, I'll tell you this, people get me mad when they say it's our fault. It's the fans' fault. The fans aren't loud enough. The fans aren't involved enough. You're wrong. I was there tonight. The fans were I like how Bob Papa to describe the fans on his post-game pod. He said they were generous tonight, and he's damn right. The fans were generous tonight. Oh yeah, generous dealing with that offense. Very generous.
No booing.
There was not a lot of booing besides halftime when there was a little bit of booing. Deserved 0 points in the first half. Millions of opportunities against the worst defense in the NFL. But they were generous. And these fans would have gotten loud, dude. They were loud at times. They were loud against Atlanta when they won 24-2 in the wild card game. They've been loud at times. They were loud against Indy 2 years ago during the playoff game. I've been at loud games. They were ready to be loud tonight. They didn't give them any reason to be loud. It's not the fans' fault for not getting loud at games. It's your fault for not scoring an offensive touchdown more than one time in 3 home games. That's your fault. That's on them.
And now that narrative's out there, which I hate, even though it's a real narrative, but they are bad at home. And now we have a 3-game sample size against 3 different teams. The Vikings, you're like, yo, Vikings are really good. It's a very good defense. You can write that one off. Dallas's defense isn't as good.
No.
Not even nearly as good. They seem to have the Giants number. That was a primetime game, though. And then this one, Bengals defense is one of the worst in the league. Primetime game. So it's like, how do we factor in the primetime as a variable into this equation as to why the Giants are so freaking putrid at home right now? Because 2 of those games were home games.
And it's so unfortunate, Nick, because I obviously don't get opportunities to go to games a lot anymore. This one I do. I don't have to work during the night games. I went with my brother. It's an experience we love to do. And, we get to a night to hang with each other. We got there early to tailgate. So many good vibes in the parking lot, Nick. Like, talking to everybody about the game. I felt pretty good. I said the no Neighbors thing is a little scary to me. And the funny thing is, if Neighbors played tonight, I'm confident the Giants would have won this game. He's that good. He could have made a couple plays on his own to win them the game. That doesn't mean that I'm also saying, because somebody was like, oh, so then you're contradicting yourself and you're saying the quarterback's doesn't deserve the blame. I'm like, dude, like, if you can't like that, I can't even get into. But like, the vibes were really high, man. The parking lot was great. Great tailgating, great time. I met up with cousin Ari, Uncle Steve and cousin Ari, avid listeners of the show. His daughter Ryan was there. She's 10 years old. I am so impressed with Ryan. She is in 5th grade and she's becoming an unbelievable athlete. Like, we had a catch in the parking lot. I swear to God, her arm talent is unbelievable for a 10-year-old girl. I'm insanely impressed. There's a case to be made that she was the best. She threw the best football wearing a Giants jersey. Oh, that one was a joke. I was setting that one up. Delivery wasn't even that good, but I had been setting that one a little bit up on the drive home. But I'm not kidding about Ryan. She threw a great ball.
There you go. Let's get Ryan in there.
We should get Ryan on the podcast. She's great. But, I saw my cousin. I got to see people I loved, hung out with my brother all game. And that was what we got, man. And it was so difficult. They scored to tie it, and there was a little bit of buzz. I felt good, but I always felt like we're putting so much on the defense all game, Nick.
Yeah. This game was a little bit different than other games. Like the Giants, like the entire game, I'm pissed off with the offense. I'm just like, this is of course they would do this, right? Like, this is so New York Giant. But at the end of the game, I at least had a feeling that they could win it.
Yeah.
There have been games, and I've said this previously on this podcast recently, that the Giants, it was a close game, a one possession game, but I was like, there's no way the Giants are going to find a way to win. In this one, I was like, I think the Giants could, by dumping it off to Tyrone Tracy Jr. and him making like Jermaine Pratt miss and then taking it for like 15 yards or something like that, right? Or if Greg Joseph made his kicks or
Right.
whatever. Like, I think the Giants, at least, like, they did enough to keep themselves in this game, despite the fact that their offense looked historically inept and bad. Which, do you want to give credit to Dable for that? I don't know. You give a lot of credit, though, to Shane Bowen and that defense, Dexter Lawrence, Azeez Ojulari, Tyler Nubin flying around like crazy, Drew Phillips, like the defense.
Great call.
Yeah. Nubin, man. You were there too, man. Nubin, there were plays, dude.
I know what you're talking
I just saw 31 just he had like a 2-yard tackle for a loss in the first quarter where he
closes quick from depth. He closes
hitter,
really quick from depth and delivers. I think Nubin will be a keeper. I think we'll be happy with Nubin. I think the Giants have done a really good job piecing this defense together fast, man. Like, they added talent, but they're still not perfect. They don't have a perfect secondary, but they have pieced this thing together fast. They picked up this scheme fast, and they're playing good ball. There were some growing pains against Washington, obviously, but they've picked it up, and they're playing really good ball right now. It's really impressive. This defense is headed to a really good spot, I think, for us moving forward, if we can ever figure out how to, move the football through the air as a consistent team. At some point as a fan, but we'll get there, we hope. But I'm happy about where this defense is headed.
They just need a counterpunch. It's like once those bread and butter plays are removed, you need to be able to find another punch in your arsenal.
Yep.
And the Giants have done that in the past. It's just in this game, Jones just looked so off of his spot, man. And so I don't know. We'll have to see on the tape. I don't know if he looked as rattled like he did in week 1. It didn't seem like that from all the way up. Like in week 1, I was like, yo, he has no idea. Like,
it didn't seem like that at all. More composed in the pocket. He was still pretty accurate on the short stuff.
Yeah, it just seemed like he was missing. It's similar to the Dallas game.
Yeah.
Where he was just missing.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, what's wrong? Like, you're going through your progressions and everything. You seem to know what you're supposed to be doing, but you're just not delivering the football where it needs to be on time.
And a lot of these were just, again, the scary part to me is a lot of these were just nowhere close. The Wan'Dale throw, nowhere close. The Hyatt 1st and 10, nowhere close. The Slayton throw, nowhere really close.
Yeah, and I'm mostly talking about non-RPO type plays.
Right.
I'm talking about like drop back.
Real throws,
real throws, yes. The RPOs, it seemed like he made the wrong decision like several times.
I know that.
And I do just wish like Dave will like get into what's up with this throwback play? We've tried it in every single freaking game. And they're just like, oh, wait, we hit it with Slayton. Let's get it with Theo Johnson now. And it's just
maybe that Slayton play hitting it last week gave them the confidence to run it again, and he'll pull it back out. I feel like he's a guy just.
I'm sorry, but this one was a different one because they ran Tracy underneath. And I'm wondering if Jones was supposed to roll to the right, look to see if he liked what he saw with Tracy. And it seemed like from the broadcast angle and from where I was that Tracy was open. I was like, yo, throw it to Tracy. What are you doing? And then he stopped. And then by that point, BJ Hill is like right in his face. And he's like, oh, I don't want to take a sack on 1st and 10. So let me try to throw it out the back of the end zone. It's just like, you can't do that, man. You just can't do that.
You can't try to throw from that spot on the back of the end zone. You have to eat that. And I saw Tracy too from my vantage point, but I just felt like he was never part of the progression for him. I think
it's just because he was rolling that way. I was wondering if like, hey, take a peek if you like it.
But here's the
design is definitely to Theo though.
No, I know it. Yeah, I know. Yeah, of course. But I think here's the thing that leads to though, Nick. This is the problem I have with the long-term part of this guy. How many times have we seen him go off script like that and just have the natural ability to feel something and see something open naturally get, it's not designed there. Your eyes weren't going there before the snap. You determined where your eyes are going to go. You know where your eyes are supposed to go, but something came in the middle of it. And I see Burrow do this all the time. And some of these other quarterbacks, good quarterbacks, consistent quarterbacks, do something off script. And I don't mean like rolling out off script. I mean like just what's not supposed to be like find that one time, find Tracy, right? Or on that 4th down play, I know you want to lock in on Slayton, but understand maybe it's not there and find the open Wan'Dale, or the other one, find the open Slayton. It's just do something that wasn't like determined by your coach and like figure it out pre-snap, and then you go to it right away with your eyes. Like
I know exactly what you're saying, dude. Exactly. And you want your quarterback to stay on script. Like that's a good trait to have. But then when the defense does something to remove that script, because they are aware of that script, they've read that script. You want a quarterback who can then find a solution to that. Now, last week in Seattle, he had solutions and he had answers, but a lot of those solutions and a lot of those answers were within the script. It's not something that we've really seen throughout his entire time here, where it's like, wow, Daniel Jones extended the play and made like watch a lot of other teams. There are quarterbacks in the league that are like Caleb Williams, for instance. This is a rookie, right? Obviously, very high pick, Heisman Trophy winner, the kit and caboodle. Off script is where that dude thrives. Like Patrick Mahomes, where it thrives. Now I'm talking about very good quarterbacks. You just really never get any of that from Daniel Jones that much. 2022, we saw it when he would step up into the pocket and roll to his right or along the line of scrimmage. And he would allow, it was usually Isaiah Hodgins. Those guys developed a nice rapport to come open. And we saw that a lot in 2022. But recently, at least this season, we haven't seen too much of it.
No, and I even think it goes beyond like it, and I know that you know this, but I'm just saying I also think it's the plays when he's in the pocket and just the occasional. I know that's not where the progression is. I know that's not where you predetermined where you want to go pre-snap. But just if a guy's open, find him. Like the occasional, if a guy's open but he's not part of the progression, the ball goes that way, right? Because I see that from other quarterbacks. The Tracy play is the one you're referring to, the throwback. Like if Tracy's open, find him. Find a way to find him.
We have a funny comment here. It's like, when will you blame Danny for the lack of consistency? If that's directed at us, you do not listen to this podcast, my friend.
No, I doubt it's directed at us. There are plenty of Homer podcasts that probably do that, or I don't want to put anyone under the bus, but it is what it is. I know there's other things that went wrong in this game. Nick and I are not blaming Jones entirely for any game that the Giants lose. We're not stupid people that think the quarterback's the only position. But we're saying this guy didn't rise above where he needed to be tonight to play well. And I actually think in games like this one in Minnesota, he played so poorly that he is the number one reason they lost the game. And I will stand by that to my death. And you could think what you want. Don't bother arguing with me about it. I'm not interested in your arguments. I believe that you're looking at it biasly. You may believe I'm looking at it from a biased lens. That's fine. I don't care. Personally, at this point, I'm done with it. If you can't watch what went down tonight and what went down against Minnesota and come to that conclusion, there's no place for us to have a discussion. Just going to be honest about that situation. We'll say this though, Nick. Fun moment at halftime. The Giants brought out like Coughlin. They brought out all the legends from our runs, our 11 and 7 runs. And you got to see on the screen some of the big plays that they made. It was fun. It was cool. It was part of a good halftime experience, I'll say, for a team that, wasn't providing a lot at the time for the fans.
I agree, man. I agree. Let's go to some supers.
Yeah, let's go to some supers.
David Goodman. What's up, David? Says, thank you, by the way. You guys were too nice to Jones on the last pod. I'm so done. Do what it takes to bring us Milroe or Nussmeier. This quarterback has been the reason for 3 losses. This is a playoff team with a real quarterback.
I don't think we were too nice to Jones on the last pod. I think we just evaluated what we saw on tape. And I think that's what we always do, pretty much. So I don't think it's a matter of nice, mean, those types of words. And I know you're not that, David. Trust me, you're not that type of person. We've had great interactions. I know you're not one of these types of people. But if he plays well on tape, like he did against Seattle, we're going to break it down and we're going to give him his credit. And he did play well. So that's that. As far as the other takes go, Milroe or Nuss, I'm not looking at quarterbacks yet for the draft. I'm not in the mood yet. It's only fucking October. I shouldn't have to do this in October every year. I'm just not ready for that. So I'm sorry. I will say this. Our boy who's been on the pod a bunch, David Syverson, who had Jaden Daniels as QB1 last class. I want to give him a lot of credit for that. As much as I like Caleb, and I still think Caleb will be the guy, Jaden is just special. I mean, his pocket feels unreal. His third down solution finding is unreal. They barely punt as an offense over and over again, game after game. He loves Nuss in this class, Nick, and he showed me some cut-ups of his anticipatory throwing, and I am intrigued, to say the least, of a quarterback who throws with that kind of anticipation at the college level. But that's one little nugget there. David says the QB has been the reason for 3 losses. I would say 2. This is a playoff team with a real QB. I do believe the Giants would be in the playoffs with a good QB. Yes. How about you, Nick? How do you feel about any of that?
100%. 100%. You can even say they might make the playoffs this year, which sounds insane now. But this division isn't that great. The NFC is not that great. And if the Giants just get hot and play like they did in Seattle, because I think there's an infrastructure around Jones right now that can allow him to play to his ceiling. And his ceiling is good enough to bring you to the playoffs. I don't know how much further you're going to go than that. And he's not going to be the reason that you're winning football games per se. But if you give him a good offensive line, you give him a healthy Malik Neighbors, you have a rushing attack that can be established with the defense that can get after the passer. Yeah, I think the Giants could realistically be a playoff team. I think they have at least the talent there, the infrastructure there.
And
But
almost half the teams make the playoffs in today's NFL.
Which is a bit much in my opinion. But
it is.
It is what it is. Renee Ruiz, thank you so much. Says, we're going to have to worry about Thomas's health every year, aren't we? I love the guy, but it's so frustrating. Yeah, he's referring to Andrew Thomas at the end of the game. He stayed in and he played. But Dan, you were at the game. You saw him in between
bad,
snaps.
dude.
I don't know if they showed it on television, but yeah, it didn't look good. It just did not look good. And Trey Hendrickson, I think, beat him on 2 sacks. One of them, I want to say it was before the injury, but yeah, Andrew Thomas did not look healthy at the end of the game.
And that's a great point you made, Nick, about just being at the game. You can see that, right? Like we saw multiple times where he was slow to get up off the field. They probably didn't show it on the broadcast, but you could see it. It did not look good. I don't think they could have. Well, I'll say this: he's going to get an MRI. And as far as like, do we have to worry about his health every year? Renee, I'm personally not a huge believer in injury. I think injuries are a lot of luck personally, but I do appreciate and understand and admit and acknowledge that he's been injured a lot so far.
Yeah, MRI, man. Damn it, dude.
It's bad.
Oof. Man Ray, thank you. Says, I remember enjoying primetime games, and now this team sucks. The fun out of it. I was just going to stop at this team sucks, but he says, the fun out of it. Every time, and Jones is the main reason. Cam Ward breakdown soon. Fingers crossed. Yeah, we got a while until Dan and I dive into quarterback tape. We're going to be eagerly doing that once that time comes, but there's still a lot of football, still a lot of season. Season is still young. Giants are sitting here 2-4. Some competitive losses under their belt, but yeah, I'm sure we'll be looking into quarterbacks eventually.
We will be, and I will say one point about it's a great point and first of all, thank you to Man Ray for donating to our super chat here and getting a question asked, and thank you to everybody who has donated, David and everyone else who has helped us support the channel and grow the show by donating to our super chats. I will say this: we'd like to have time to do it, but Nick and I just, with our schedules for work, don't have time to break down quarterbacks until the offseason. So that's just a realistic timeline there. I will say this though, Nick, from watching that halftime thing where we got to see some clips from 2011 and Kevin Boss, the 2007 catch. I do want to find a way to break down some old Giants tape with you this offseason. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I know we've struggled to get a hold of the all 22. I'll put it out there again. If anyone has all 22 to share with us from the Giants 11 or 7 runs, share it. I am willing to say, and we could see if you're interested in this, Nick, because I haven't asked you this yet, so I'm asking you on air. And if other people are interested, I'd be interested in just breaking down even broadcast games of that run. I think people would enjoy that a lot. I think it'd be great content. So we can talk about that. It would
be so cool too to see how football was played back then.
True. It'd be a lot of fun.
It was a lot different.
And
we all are aware of that, but we've kind of been like walked slowly into this iteration of football. If we just kind of like go blast from the past and watch it, we're gonna be like, holy shit, like what is that? What is that? A fullback over there doing that? Like,
yeah. One high safety? Is that one safety in the middle of the field?
Yeah, dude. I love
Speaking
football.
of how football is different now, I don't blame Azeez Ojulari he should have 3 sacks tonight for the wrap-up missed sack. I think that's the NFL's fault right there. And I believe that if you're the NFL and you want to do everything you can to protect the quarterback to the point where you have defensive players not feeling they can wrap up, then you need to blow that whistle immediately. You need to be blowing these whistles a lot. I know that it's hypocritical to say that considering Eli Manning never would have had to replay if they blew that whistle, but that game was called different back then.
I think Azeez Ojulari thought he knocked the ball out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because to me, it wasn't like a Matthias Kiwanuka situation where he wrapped. Do you remember that, dude?
So painful.
Oh, God, it's the most painful thing ever.
I remember the team. I remember exactly who they played.
Yeah, it was Vince Young. Yeah, it was Vince Young's rookie season in 2006. I remember being on my couch, like watching that with like my high school girlfriend or whatever, and I was just like,
what happened?
Devastated. I was like, it wasn't like a 4th down too. I was like,
yeah, it was a big play in the game.
And the way Kiwanuka just like wrapped him up and then just walked away. He just like walked off, and I was like, wait, what was that guy doing?
Yeah,
like, you got to finish the play, man. But
that
again, like to your point, and this was like the early stages. And the NFL is being, but then again, though, man, I look at like these big, strong quarterbacks who break, like Josh Allen. He gets wrapped up and just breaks out of it because he's Josh Allen. So it is it's something they got to deal with, I guess.
That Burrow looked crazy fast on that touchdown run. That was wild. I know there's so much space, but
bro, you were up there
Yeah.
I was up there in the press box. Right when he took off, I was like,
I knew he was gone.
because the Giants like looped somebody from the outside in, and then there was the edge, and the edge kind of took like a wide angle because I'm pretty sure I think the Giants wanted like the looper to just go right there, and Burrow would have stepped up into a sack. But the looper didn't get there. I think it might have been Elijah Chapman, but I don't want to like put his name out there. I just did. We'll see on the film, and we'll come back tomorrow. And I'm not even 100% certain this is what it was, but that's what I think was supposed to happen. But again, it was like a 3rd and 18. Why are you running man coverage with nobody else? That had to be like what the plan was. It just didn't. Someone didn't execute.
One of my gripes too with Bowen. Sometimes he sells out way too hard to stop one thing.
But dude, right when I saw him step up through the B,
I knew he was gone.
I was like, I don't think anybody's getting him because I just saw
Nowhere
Simmons
near.
like Simmons is like, oh shit, and he just starts freaking like chugging, and I'm like, Simmons
And the
is fast.
safeties had already moved to the other half of the field. They rotated all the way to the other half where they had the 3 receiver side. It was bad. It was one bad play though.
I'm wondering if the Bengals had that play like specifically designed for like a 3rd and long situation where it was like, if you read man coverage, go.
Maybe.
Because the Giants have been bad. Like the Giants defense have been bad this season in those specific situations, even against uber athletic Olympic style quarterbacks like Joe Burrow.
And they have Jalen Hurts next week, who's going to run a lot if they give him that opportunity.
Yes. Jalen Hurts like when Jalen Hurts runs, he doesn't look like he's moving fast, but he is.
No, but he somehow is. Even though
he
hasn't.
He like glides kind of like, but I don't know. Like he seems like he has a lot of force
this year, though. They should be able to stop. This defense should have a good day against Hurts.
I agree. All right, wait. Let's go here. Clarence, thank you. Clarence says, hope they re-sign Slayton. Hyatt ain't it at wide receiver too.
I want to watch the tape before I know it was a bad game on paper for Hyatt. I just would like to see the tape on that.
I agree. Didn't look promising though.
Did not look good.
It did not look promising.
Yeah.
SOS Archive, thank you so much. Says, for the DJ diehards, I hope you got what you wanted while the rest of us live in misery with this quarterback.
Yeah, I see. This is the problem with where we're at as a fan base. Like, we've had to get to this point where it's like the fan base is fractured. They're fighting with each other. They're arguing. We're focusing on the wrong shit here. Who gives a crap about if you're a pro DJ or an anti-DJ or you're a hater or a homer? Like, we just need to win games. We just need to be able to move the ball. Like, it's not about defending the quarterback no matter what if he's on your team. We just that's too much of that, Nick. There's too much of that in this fan base. It's going to happen with every quarterback we have from this point on, but we need to, as a fan base, grow together and understand like that we're allowed to ask for more. We're allowed to set a higher bar. We're allowed to, want consistency. We're allowed to not want to always look for someone to blame but that one player.
100%. But what came into my head and made me grimace, shout out, was the fumble in like the final 2 minutes of the game where Chase Brown put it on the ground, and I watched Jason Pinnock. Like, I was right over top of that. I saw Jason Pinnock. I was like, oh, Joe, and then it just like kicked out of bounds, and I was like, oh my God, dude! Like, come on, dude. That would have been such an amazing way. Imagine if Daniel Jones like got an opportunity and led the team down, scored a touchdown, the Giants won, and it's like, yo. They're completely different podcast, completely different feel.
Completely different podcast, completely different feeling for us as a fan base, completely different season. And that's the story of our lives as Giants fans and Giants podcasters for the last however many years. Everything is always, it's what you said earlier, Nick. It's enough of the we should have won this game, which we say a lot on this podcast. Technically, we're right, but we're wrong because maybe we need to, like you said, adjust and reset our expectations for this team, given the limitations they have on the offensive side of the ball.
Which is so unfortunate too. Because we went into this season thinking the offense would be able to get something going with Malik Neighbors. Now Neighbors wasn't there, fine enough, but Neighbors wasn't there against Seattle, and the Giants were able to move the football decently.
They can do it sometimes. That's the frustrating part. It's what I said 2 months ago, Nick. 3 different regimes have chased fleeting glimpses of brilliance with this quarterback, and he does have his moments. And that's why we like him.
So here's something that's going to depress all of us. Last week, the Bengals played the Baltimore Ravens. They surrendered 41 points. Carolina, they played the week before. They surrendered 24 points. Washington, they surrendered 38. Kansas City, they surrendered 26. And then New England, they surrendered 16. And the Giants scored.
And they lost their best corner before this game.
Yes, they did. This is for Angry Dan, LL Cool John, thank you so much. This is for Angry Dan. I like when he is on the pod.
Well,
So he hates you, Dan. You suck, Dan. He wants
I see what he's saying. He wants the angry Dan. Yeah, I haven't been that angry tonight. I had 1 minute mini blow up. I left it all on the field, John. I screamed a couple times. It was embarrassing in the stand. I embarrassed my brother tonight.
Oh, you did?
A couple times. No, one time. I just the miss to Wandell really freaking pissed me off, dude. That miss. And then the Slayton skip, the bully skip to Slayton from a clean pocket that he hitched like 3 times into the throw. I mean, that's just unacceptable bullshit to me. It really is. I set a bar. Yes, I'll set my bar that
I
high.
think you're very on to something when you talk about the aiming. Because I think in his mind, he's like, I want to put this ball low so Slayton can do exactly what he almost did on that play.
Right.
He can just drop down, catch it, and he won't be taking this like hit from a guy driving down. So he's trying to like do his wide receiver solid, but he's just not. It's not a natural thing for him to do. He tries to aim it, and I think that gets in his head, and then his mechanics get screwed up.
I think so. I think when he's aiming it, he's at his worst. He needs to just let it rip and let it come more naturally to him.
I do when I'm in public on the subway. I just let it rip. All right, Igor Solituski, thank you so much. I hope I said that right. Thank you for your donation, though. He says, if Burrow had a game like DJ did against Seattle, the Bengals podcast would be saying it was an off game. Why do we get excited over his decent games when they're not that good in the big picture? I think we get excited because it's a deviation from what we usually see.
Yeah.
And if Jones could consistently, and again, it's a big if he could consistently play the way that he played against Seattle, the Giants are a playoff team. That's why. Doesn't mean the Giants have a top 5 or top 10 quarterback, but it means they have a reliable starting quarterback who you can say, hey, we have a half of football. Let's get 14 points. Let's get 17 points. Let's get 10 points. And it's not like an insurmountable task for the offense to handle. That's what it seems like it is right now, though. So that's why I think Giant fans get excited. It's just a little glimmer of hope that this quarterback can play to his ceiling. And if he plays to his ceiling, it at least allows us to be competitive throughout the entire season.
And Igor, thank you so much for the donation. And I think you make a fair point here, right? Like,
very fair.
It's okay to admit that, like, it was a great game for Jones, one of his best on tape, and it was still just 250 and 2 TDs. So it wouldn't be one of Burrow's best games. I don't know if they would say it was an off game for Burrow. Maybe they would just say it was like a middling game for him. But we can't compare Jones. I think this goes back to what Nick said earlier, the first point Nick made. It really just keeps coming home and coming around full circle on almost all of these points. We have to stop. So it's one thing to set a bar a certain height, which Nick and I do, and I set it really high for the quarterback for what we want. But it's another thing to set that bar to a certain height that you're describing there, Igor, while understanding who your quarterback is. And I think at this point, there has to be an understanding of what he is as a quarterback. He's going to flash sometimes, but overall, he's going to be inconsistent. And there's going to be games like this. We've had 2 of 5 like this so far this year, Nick, where it's just inexcusably bad levels of quarterback play. Like, even if you guys want to say like, oh, the drops, oh, there was more pressure tonight, blah, blah, blah. It still comes down to the basics of this game. The Bengals played 11 guys around the line of scrimmage the entire night, didn't respect the deep half at all, and drove down on all their quick game. And their main factor remains. Even when Jones had his nice stretch these last 4 games, all that shit was pretty much just first read and throws 5 to 7 yards. Like, we're still not watching a quarterback who's dotting up like 10 to 15 yard air yard throws 6 to 10 times a game, right? We don't see that.
And when defenses are playing this, like we've seen like Matt Stafford, Joe Burrow, for instance, we've seen a lot of quarterbacks do this. You want to play really aggressively. You want to drive down on that Wandale. Cool. I'm running a dig. I'm running a dig. Well, you can gas it, or I'm going to run a dig right behind it. We're going to have a 3-man route concept. You're going to drive. I'm going to replace that zone defender that keeps driving down when you're in zone coverage. And I'm just going to replace him with a route behind it. It's kind of like just a high-low, and it's a way to punish an over-aggressive defense. But the Giants, man, like it seems like if Jones sees like, hey, he's open right now, let's get him the football, and it's worked. But when they are playing you uber aggressively, there's no space to create yards after the catch. And we've seen through 5 games now, 6 games, the New York Giants, it's throw Wan'Dale Robinson the football 5-6 yards before the sticks and hope he breaks 2 tackles and falls forward and gets a first down. Like, that's kind of been a big part of our offense, and that's an issue. We should be throwing beyond the sticks, because then that will allow you to throw before the sticks so Wan'Dale can do his thing. But the Giants are one-dimensional in that regard.
Yeah, and I think, even that we've set a little bit of a low bar on by saying,
Yeah.
it's been working. Has it worked? The Giants don't score touchdowns. So it's not really working. It's working in our minds now, Nick, because we're used to pass football where they're like punting. I even said it to my brother before the game, which I feel bad about now because it was I now somewhat blame myself for a jinx. I was like, Matt, like we've had a lot of games together and we've had a lot of not fun games where they just have been awful. And I'm feeling good because the offense this year has put me to a point. And I said, and I jinxed it, but I said, like,
Yeah.
I'm throwing the Minnesota game out because, look, they're a better team than we thought they were. They're 5-0, and their defense coordinator is like the best in the NFL. Besides that, the offense has at least gotten us to a point where they're not 3-and-outing a bunch, right? Because we've had years. That's why we're setting such a low bar. That's why we've considered these last 4 games like amazing by Jones, and not we. We know what we know. It's why the fans have, why overall, let's say, as a whole, we've considered these Jones games pretty good because we set such a low bar. But and I was like, Matt, at least we're at the point where we're not punting every possession anymore in these games. And then I jinxed it because that's basically what tonight was, just a punt off from the Giants offense.
Well, I don't know about that because they turned the football over on downs like 3 times and missed 2 field goals.
True. Dude, they did actually, it was better. They didn't have a lot of those 3-and-outs that they used to have. At the beginning, they did. It was really ugly at the beginning. Second half, they found a little bit more success, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Marcus Creed, thank you so much, says, I don't know if I've ever hated an athlete more than I hate DJ. How much longer can they trot him out before the locker room rebels? Found your guys' podcast last year, one of the few bright spots for me. Marcus, thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for your donation. And I think they're like, dude, these are humans out there. When you're losing football games and the defense has that type of performance and are coming away with an L, a lot of those defensive players are going to have animus towards Daniel Jones in the offense. It's just natural, especially when they're competing in practice all the time. Like they're going to do some live reps later this week. They're going to be a little bit like, they're not going to take shots or anything, but they're going to be like, man, screw these guys. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like anybody who's been on a football team before. Now, a lot of us have played high school football. So you probably played offense and you probably played defense. But if you've ever been on like a team where it's like there's an offense and there's a defense, you know that there's like, if one side is much stronger than the other, there's certainly an animosity there between those 2 sides that just like within the locker room, and you try not to let it spill out. That's why coaches come in and try to tame all that. But it gets heated, man, if it's really bad. And with the loss like this, primetime television, oh, the Giants suck. There's not a great look. It's not a great look.
Yeah, it's a great, thank you for the donation. Great point, Nick. And I think we even saw a little bit of glimpses of this a little bit earlier before the Seattle game. You saw Art Stapleton talk a little bit about this. Dexter Lawrence was starting to get really pissed and he was starting to be fed up with the losing. Now Dexter Lawrence is 2-4. And if Dexter Lawrence is putting together what he's putting together on a weekly basis, I mean, the guy has 7 sacks as a defensive tackle through 6 games. That's absurd levels of sacks. And it's done way more than just the sack total. The tape is phenomenal. The whole defense is playing phenomenal. Eventually they're going to get pissed. Like that's just life. Like remember, like back in the day, some of those Jets teams are getting pissed at the offense. Like Dexter Lawrence doesn't want to lose. He's an athlete. He's gotten to this level because of his competitive drive. And he knows that his defense didn't do anything to deserve a loss tonight. If anything, the defense against the number 1 ranked EPA offense, Bengals, did the best possible job they could do to win this game, save for a few plays while being on the field the whole game. Now, as far as what you said, though, Marcus, I don't know if the locker room's going to rebel because it's like Jones still gives them the best chance to win because they didn't bring in any real, and I'm not trying to knock Drew Lock, but they didn't bring in a big time competition at QB2 this year. They said, this is your year, Jones. You're on no competition as usual for you. So, and I think Tyrod was real competition when they signed him, but they treated it as no competition. They never gave Tyrod a chance to win the actual job. So there's no, I don't know if the locker, like if they turn to Drew Lock, Nick, for example, tonight, Drew Lock would have outplayed Daniel Jones. I truly believe that. Minnesota, he would have outplayed Daniel Jones. But I think Drew Lock would have been worse for the Giants in all of their games this year. So all the 4 other games, they would have had a worse chance to win with Drew Lock. I think. I don't know. I've never seen Lock in this offense, so I cannot confirm any of this until we actually see him in a regular season game. This is just my thoughts on what. So I don't think they're going to rebel because this is kind of the best chance they have to win, and they really want to win.
Exactly. And honestly, the defense should score points. It's on the defense. Right?
The defense should have had a pick 6.
They should score the points, right? Yeah. That's what those really good defenses used to do.
Right.
I will say this, though. The Giants, they have what? 1 interception this season? I'm obviously not blaming the defense. Defense played phenomenal.
Have no interceptions this season?
I think Darius Musow had an interception, right? Didn't he pick one off?
Against Minnesota, Darnold.
I don't think they've had an interception since then.
We have not had an interception since that Darnold pick. I do remember that Darnold pick now.
That's kind of crazy because they're getting after the quarterback. And like that's hopefully going to turn around. The reason why I'm
They
bringing
lead
up
the NFL in sacks, though. Yeah,
exactly. I hope that turns around because I think like the Giants have safeties who could do it, right? So
right.
I'm hoping they can start coming away with interceptions and
It's interesting though. It's a
taking
good
them to
point.
the house, and
There's a little
scoring
luck
points that
involved when
way.
it comes to turnovers too, Nick. Obviously, I know you
100%.
know that, but like, the Giants had a lot of turnover luck last year, and they're having less turnover luck this year, which is funny to say since they only won 6 games last year. But it's also, they probably would have won 2 or 3 last year if they didn't have the turnover luck. They definitely would have lost that second Washington game, and they would have lost the Patriots game as well. So that would have been 2 more losses against the 2 teams that drafted ahead of them.
I'll say this though, too. I mean, like the Zach Moss fumble was one of the most crucial moments of this game,
Yeah,
right? And that reminded me of 2022 because the Giants
I
they
know.
they were so opportunistic back in 2022 with fumbles.
They
Carolina
could have
game,
just
the
been
Jacksonville
decent
game.
on offense tonight, Nick. Just decent. Not even good. Just decent. They would have won this game. But it's enough of the coulda, woulda, shoulda. Like you said earlier, dude, I can't keep saying they should have won this game because no, the expectation has to change
I
given what
agree.
they have.
Washington's the one game where I'm like, you should have won because that was like Dable. Well, to me, just derelicted his duty, took a huge risk on a 38-year-old kicker, not bringing in a practice squad guy who's been with you all camp and promoting him. That just was dumb. And then here
And as my friend Dan said in the parking lot, how can a punter not be good enough as a natural kicker to kick extra points? That's
I
always
don't
been
know.
weird to me. Like there should be a backup plan if your kicker gets hurt. Like the punter should be able to kick an extra point. I feel like.
Well, he has kicked extra points before. He just missed the first one that they tried. And they
Yeah,
never
and then they
went
got
back.
rattled. Yeah.
Yeah, they just never
Gable's
went
big
back.
on that, right? Like if he sees one thing, there's no like Tom Coughlin famously against the Packers gave Lawrence Tynes another shot, despite Tynes missing those kicks
Well, I think Lawrence Tynes gave himself a shot.
by running onto the field.
Yeah, he just like ran onto the
Yeah, yeah.
field, and I think that gave Tom Coughlin the confidence that he was going to.
Agreed. Fair enough. But Coughlin still could have overruled that if he really
Of
needed
course,
to. But
of course.
so Coughlin will, but Dable, it's like, my God, when Greg Joseph missed that first kick, it was like, we're going for it on 4th, no matter what. They were in field goal range again. But I don't hate that decision because Joseph, it's confidence game kicking. I kind of respect that.
So, how did you feel about at the end of the game them going for the field goal instead of taking shots after they clocked it? It was 2nd and 10, 52 seconds left, I think.
Oh,
And they were down by 2 scores. But it's like, do you take a shot there? Do you try to score, or like
I
how do
think
you feel?
mathematically you're supposed to go for the field goal.
Mathematically, yes.
Yeah.
But if you don't have trust in your
If you
kicker,
don't trust in your kicker, it's a mess. The real answer to the question is you shouldn't let yourself be in this effing position in the first
yeah,
place.
that's a great point. Jordan Casper, thank you so much, buddy. Says, do y'all think this roster is good enough to trade up for a quarterback if we end up in the 8 to 16 pick? We're so far away, Jordan.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We're so far away though from these types of things. It depends on a lot of different things.
But I will say, to answer the main part of the question, I think this roster is good enough. I think the Giants are being held back by a lot of factors, not just the quarterback. Obviously, in 2 games, it was the quarterback, but in other games by other stupid things, like you said, the kicker situation or dumb shit that happened against Dallas, whatever, all these games. But like they're in every game and the defense is balling right now. And they have playmakers like Malik Neighbors and an offensive line that's vastly improved.
And we'll say that I agree. And again, this is another quarterback and another offensive approach that showed a lot of respect to the Giants defense because Joe Burrow was getting the football out of his hands, especially in that first half. They were getting the football out of his hands very quickly. I think a lot of teams come in and they're like, yo, I am shit scared of 97. 0, that guy's fast. I don't want to deal with him. And I think Azeez Ojulari complements Brian Burns so much better than Kayvon Thibodeau.
He does.
This is similar from a speed and a bend type of standpoint, but I think that just, again, in Shane Bowen's system, dude, when they use them wide, he is such a better fit than Kayvon because he is so much more bendy and flexible. And I think there's a good argument to say that he's more explosive than Kayvon. And that's one of Kayvon's calling traits.
Yeah.
It's just like the run game. And I don't even think Azeez is as bad against the run as maybe we have even thought in the past. It's just we haven't seen him that much. We've only really seen him as a pass rush specialist because he was injured for those years.
Right.
So I'm happy that he's getting this chance and this opportunity, especially in a contract year, because I think he's
I knew he would come out and ball tonight because like this is his chance, right? Like he's been on the bench all year and he's contract year, and it's like I can show people what I'm still capable of, and he was able to do that tonight. Now he's going to get this 3-game audition to do that.
Exactly. Without that 3-game audition, though, like Azeez Ojulari is the type of player that if the Giants signed, like if he wasn't a Giant and he was drafted, and I remember watching him at Georgia, went to the 2nd round to the Tennessee Titans or something, right? And then the Giants signed him on a 1 year, whatever $1 million, I would have been like, that's like, this is awesome. Like a 26, 27-year-old guy who's entering his prime, who's on a prove it deal. Like, let's go, baby.
Right.
He has that type of skill set, but now he's going to have this extended. He might play himself into a nice contract. We'll have to see.
True.
Pat Monahan, thank you so much, Pat. Says Burns looked good. LOL. Who cares? Jones equals garbage. He didn't put a question mark, but I put a question mark there. Yeah. Burns looked great, man. He was he was all over the place against the run and everything. Yeah, I care that Burns looked good, to be honest.
Yeah, I care too.
Yeah, I'm a big Burns guy. And then Jones did not look good. He smelled. All right. Joe Winograd. Thank you, Joe. Says, I think our defense is so much better than we thought it'd be. Truth. But we were 1 to 2 big plays away, or better quality quarterback play, from taking this one. Yeah.
Right.
Joe, you nailed it. You connect on that Wan'Dale Robinson 3rd and 8. You don't take that illegal man down or ineligible man downfield that negated the 50 whatever yard pass to Darius Slayton. The game could be different.
Yeah, you don't throw that interception in the red zone, you have at least 3 points.
Hopefully. Greg Joseph.
That was 1st and 10, though, deeper inside. I don't think he would have missed a kick that close. They probably would have it would have been 2nd and 10 or whatever if he takes a sack.
Yeah, man. Renee Ruiz, thank you. Nick, what's the press box experience like? Do you have to keep a straight face or you let your fan flag fly? Yeah, so I'm not the most like emotive person when I'm watching games. So I'm pretty composed when I'm just like sitting there like analyzing it. So I don't really like scream and everything. It's cool, man. You're there with a bunch of people that you associate with on Twitter. They have food, walking around. John Mara is just like walking by. You're like, oh,
yeah.
You're just like doing your thing. I think it's a cool experience to be up in the press box, and I'm blessed to have that. And so I'm not screaming or anything like that. I'm usually just like calling things out and like trying to like be like, all right, if I was in this situation, what would I do? Or the safety doing that. So what does that mean? I'm trying to like do it from that perspective more so than like the fan perspective, I think.
It was funny when I covered a couple games when I was doing the NFL side with CBS. There was one game where I walked into the bathroom, and as I was walking in, Dave Gettleman walked out. I didn't say anything. I'm not going to hackle him.
Of course not. I've told you when I was interning at the Senior Bowl, like Gettleman like walked past me. I was like walking by. He's like, "How you doing, that kid?" And he patted me on the shoulder. And then Shermer like walked past, was like, and like gave me like one of these. They were interviewing Will Greer for like 15 to 20 minutes, and I was like, "Yo, man." Yeah, they were really into quarterbacks, and they seemed to like Greer. They didn't go with him, though. They went with Daniel Jones. All right. Igor, thank you so much. Igor again says, is the best defense that we've had since OC and Tuck. Is this the best defense we've had since OC and Tuck?
They're going to have a case to be made. It's still a long season, but they have a case to be made for sure.
They have a case to be made, but I don't think you're going to overtake the 2006 defense. Like that was 2016 defense. I'm sorry.
Oh, good point. Good point.
Yeah.
They're not going to be as good as that defense.
That defense brought the Giants to the play. I mean, I don't want to or sell short Eli and Odell and that connection. And it was like a fun season, but the Giants defense
was like everything that year. Yeah. They had
Landon Collins had like 8 interceptions, or I think I'm over exaggerating. He was crazy that season.
Janoris Jenkins was locked down that year.
Jack Rabbit, Olivier Vernon, JPP. It was a very good defense. You had Snacks in the middle.
I want to give it to that defense. Yeah, this is a good defense for them so far. We have a long way to go, but I would say
I'm
not to overtake 16.
I'm very pleased with what the defense has done. I'm not necessarily in the boat right now where it's like this is the top 5 defense in the league, though.
Yeah,
right. Like, I still think there's a lot to prove, but I'm very intrigued, and they are far better than I expected them to be. But I still want to see a little bit more.
I agreed entirely. I will say, individually speaking, tonight they played like a top 5 defense.
I agree with that, man. Good point. Those are all of our
even crazier that they lost. This is insane to play it like that well and lose. But it's 2 sides of the game plus special teams. That's all the supers. I'm trying to think if I missed anything fun. We got to the halftime stuff I wanted to talk about. Watching from the 300s was good. The Bengals playing close to the line of scrimmage. I'm just going to run through notes real quick, Nick. Deep passes. Cool halftime show. I wanted to get all those. So last thing I can give you, like and subscribe to the podcast, please. Hit the like button if you're watching this right now. If you're watching it live, hit the like button. If you're watching tomorrow morning, hit the like button.
It's 2 a.m, baby.
It's 2 a.m. and we're doing this. Now we love it, so it is what it is, but we would like your support because then it could help us grow it. And so I know a lot of you enjoy the show, but you have to help us by hitting the like button. It's a very simple task that I ask of you. I will ask it always. I do apologize to those of you who didn't feel like you got the rant you wanted tonight. I've seen that a little bit, but like I said, the rants come naturally. They're not going to be forced. And I got most of my emotional toll out already tonight, Nick, and I'm just more of defeated Dan tonight, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm defeated Nick as
Yeah.
well. It's
2
disappointing.
and 4.
Disappointing is the adjective to use for this New York Giants team.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just seems like, I don't know. Seems like they just
Seems
find
like we
ways.
say this every year.
I know, man.
Every year with this quarterback except one. So we'll see what happens. I think they can beat the Eagles. That's the craziest part. Like, I think the Eagles are so bad they could potentially beat the Eagles this coming week.
But will you have the stones to go with the Giants? Because you need to get that first win, right?
I need to get my first prediction win. I got this one wrong too. I forgot. First of all, I said 30-28 Giants, a 58-point guess. That was unbelievably bad guess right there.
Nah,
Start by saying that.
things can happen like that. The defense, the
know.
Bengals defense played like shit for 3 consecutive weeks.
Yeah.
And then before that,
right.
they played the Patriots. Who the hell is their quarterback? And then the Chiefs, who
Right.
Pat Mahomes is playing like Daniel Jones.
Yeah. Not quite, but close. Yeah, I don't know what happened tonight with that regard. I just we'll see on tape, but I still think a lot of it had to do with when you can just put 11 guys around the line of scrimmage, you're just gonna be able to stop anyone.
We'll be back tomorrow to break down.
Yeah. Right back tomorrow, breakdown tape. Thank you for sticking with us tonight. Have a great rest of your night, or weekday, or morning commute, and we'll talk to you soon.